everyone, my name's Anelise. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about dating. I'm someone who spent a lot of time in my teens and early 20s dating both seriously and casually. I am now happily married to my husband, and I wanted to just kind of talk through some of the advice and tips and tricks that helped me get to this point and to have a successful dating life. Of course, there are a lot of different reasons why someone might be dating, but I think it is generally accepted that the reason why you date somebody is to find your person, your long-term partner, your spouse. And I feel like my dating life was kind of, if I could describe it, it was like leaving no stone unturned. I did a lot of different things. I dated a lot of different people. I came at it from a lot of different lenses. I dated a lot of different types of people too. And through every experience and every person that I dated, I was able to learn so much. I also learned a ton from dating my husband. And what I really loved about our dating process is that I kind of got to learn how to date in real time with the person I was dating. And I was able to learn it so successfully that, we ended up getting married. I learned so much through dating my husband, and then we ended up getting married, so now I have absolutely no use for this information anymore, so I thought I would share it today. Hopefully you find this helpful. This is just gonna be a pretty chill, laid-back vibe. I did not sleep well last night, so we're just gonna take it easy. Feel free to grab a drink and just settle in, and let's get right into it. So probably the most illuminating thing that I learned from dating my husband is just how obvious it will be when a guy is truly into you. I know I've spent a lot of time kind of deciphering mixed messages from men, if you will, in my dating journey. And what I came to realize in dating my husband is that if a guy is interested in you, there's almost nothing that you can do to get him to leave you alone. I remember so many different times when I was dating, when I was seeing a guy or interested in a guy, and really the mystique was, is he into me or is he not? And honestly, if you have to ask that question, or when you are asking that question, the answer is pretty much always going to be no. Because when a guy is into you, it will be so blatantly obvious that the question will not even cross your mind. When my husband and I started dating, it became abundantly apparent to me that he was very into me, and he really wanted to pursue a relationship with me, and he was willing to go to great lengths and jump through hoops in order to have that relationship. He was down for it. He was willing. He knew what he wanted, and what he wanted was a relationship with me. And that was, I don't know, it was humbling, it was enlightening, it was gratifying. And I also realized that it would have saved me so much heartache to understand that fact about men sooner. And not just heartache, but also so much time and energy that I just kind of wasted obsessing about, oh, does he like me? Does he not like me? Can I make him like me? Is there a chance? Is there potential? What is this? What's going on? Just basically going in circles, wondering about what a guy thought of me, what potential for a relationship we had, and if I could do anything to make him like me more, if that makes sense. And I don't think that's an uncommon thing to experience as a young woman, but it was stunning to realize that it's just very abundantly obvious. And it makes sense, when I'm thinking about it now, that it would be obvious how a guy feels about you, because men in a loving way are simple creatures. Most of the time, they're pretty straightforward, and what you see is what you get, and we pretty much know what they're thinking and feeling. It's just pretty linear, straightforward, and that's a wonderful quality. There are many reasons why that quality is an asset. I don't know why, for whatever reason, I did not think about how that would manifest in dating. So I guess if I could sum this tip up in one sentence, it would be, he's just not that into you. And it's a tough pill to swallow, and I know that it's honestly a lot of fun to go on these kind of wild goose chases, even if it's just in your own mind of like, oh, does he like me? What does he think about me? Just that whole, there's a lot of excitement that comes from that, especially in the early days of dating and like experiencing the dating pool. I get it. It was so fun. And I know that I learned this exactly at the right time. But it's just crazy to think how different everything would shake out or would have shaken out if I had known that going into my dating life. Now, another thing that I found so interesting about my relationship with my husband is that he did not align with any of my so-called preferences that I had in dating. He did not look the way I preferred. He did not really have the lifestyle that I thought I preferred. There's just no part of it that was like what I was looking for on paper. If I could describe like what I thought I was looking for, it was probably brown hair and blue eyes and kind of more of an artsy type of guy, and maybe a musician, somebody intellectual who likes to read. Basically, I was thinking that I wanted the male version of myself. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any person who has any of those qualities. My husband has red hair, green eyes. He's blue collar through and through. He loves anything to do with like being outside and anything physical. That's just all his wave. Basically, he's just extremely, extremely masculine. He's also a Christian. When I started dating him, or when I met him and we were getting to know each other, that was really another thing that I was not interested in. But come to find out, all of the things that I thought I wanted in a person and all of the things that I was looking for consciously were not my type. They were not my preferences. They were my patterns. And what I mean by that is it was what was familiar to me. It felt like the safe option. It felt like I understood how to behave in a dynamic with those types of people, and that made me feel like I had a sense of control in my dating relationships. And kind of like I said at the beginning of this video, there are a lot of different reasons why somebody dates, right? And that's something that you have to field in when you are in the dating pool, but also like to know about yourself too. For a lot of the time when I was dating, I was dating to try to play out these patterns. Yes, we could probably trace them all the way back to childhood. So I would go after repeatedly the same kinds of people because I wanted to replay the same kinds of experiences. And I think a part of that was just kind of wanting some closure, wanting to kind of turn these situations or patterns or dynamics that I experienced in my life, wanting to just kind of turn them over and see what other flavors I could put on them and look at them from a different lens. And in a lot of ways, that was very helpful and has been very helpful in my healing process. At the same time, though, there's only so much you can get out of repeatedly rehashing the unhealthy relationship dynamics and patterns that you experienced in your life. So in meeting and dating my husband, I came to really realize that character plays a way bigger role in the success of a relationship and the compatibility of two people than any of these other arbitrary preferences that I thought I had. Even religion, I'm going to be completely honest, I would have thought at the time I was dating my husband that was probably a deal breaker. But I also know something about myself is that I'm pretty open-minded in the sense like you can do what you want and need to do, and I don't necessarily have to have a problem with it, even if I disagree with it. So at the time, I probably would have disagreed with it in a certain sense. And basically, it became very clear to me, and it was revealed to me through my husband's consistent behavior that was, not only like repeated over instances, but also was consistent with his character and his values that he professed to have. Over time, I realized that consistency mattered to me way more than the ideals themselves, if that makes sense, because there are so many people who claim to stand for something or believe something or view the world a certain way, and then whether consciously or unconsciously, behave in a way that is entirely different. And that wasn't something that I wanted in a life partner. That is not something that I wanted to deal with. So finding my husband and witnessing firsthand just how consistent of a person he is day in and day out, and how highly he holds his values and actually lives them out, that was more what I was actually looking for on a more soul level. And so now you can see I have videos about this on my YouTube channel, but I have converted to Christianity and we are converting to Orthodoxy together, and that journey has been so beautiful already. It's a lifelong journey and a lifelong commitment, and it's something that I'm really excited about, but that I never ever would have expected. And the only reason why I've been able to enjoy this honestly completely new path of my life is because I was open to something that was outside of what I thought my quote-unquote type was. Because I do think that having a type has a lot to do with control. There are definitely insights that I gained from just dating in my type and my pattern. This path of more growth for myself in every aspect of my life has only been possible by branching out and kind of setting aside that type or that pattern to see what God actually has in store for me. And along with that is setting aside the control or the desire to control dating and dating outcomes. So if it wasn't already obvious, I was not right off the bat interested and attracted to my husband when I first met him. And this was not solely because he was outside of what I considered to be my type. It was also just because of the timing of the whole situation. I had gone through an extremely recent breakup when we met. And as a result, I was not feeling open to delving into an entirely new relationship and putting myself out there intimately. It just really wasn't top of mind for me. It wasn't really a priority. And I know for a fact that this was actually hugely beneficial to my husband and I's relationship, because in previous relationships, I was, into it and invested right off the bat and would allow my own standards to fall by the wayside because I just wanted to get this person to like me. And then in my experience anyway, that basically doomed every relationship to fail because there was a power imbalance that I allowed to happen where this person had more say and more power in the relationship, and I was willing to give up more in order to make the relationship happen. I think that's a trap that a lot of women can fall into, is just wanting to be agreeable and good and liked and to have control. And paradoxically, that means giving up the standards that you hold in order to feel like you really have that person, you gave something up for them, so you really have them. It's not totally logical, and I'm still kind of piecing together the best way to articulate that phenomenon, but I definitely experienced it in my other dating relationships. And really what that amounts to is a certain kind of performance. And if you're a woman watching this, I'm sure you're familiar with the performative nature of womanhood that just kind of rears its head sometimes. There's just a sense of being watched, being perceived, and needing to be beautiful and feminine and soft and whatever else in every moment, no matter the occasion, and to make sure there's this almost need to ensure that your partner has that perception of you at all times. And that's super exhausting. It definitely was for me anyway. But what made dating my husband so great is that I was not interested in him. So I was not trying to do this whole big rigmarole performance show of how worthy I am and how pleasing and appropriate I am as a woman. I was just real. I was just myself. And because my husband was so forthcoming about the fact that he was pursuing me and interested in me, that made me take a step back and look at him with a very critical eye. And I don't mean to criticize, but to just understand who he is and what he is about. And that further distanced me from that whole performance that I had previously been engaging in every single one of my other dating relationships. I found it so hugely helpful to be taking this analytical stance and really observing and understanding him when we were dating. It wasn't to be cruel and it wasn't to use it against him, but I was very interested in understanding who he was, not just the good qualities about him, but also his flaws, specifically his really, really big flaws. And that turned out to be a huge asset to our relationship and made our relationship so successful, and it helped us to start on such an even footing and to continue on such an even footing, because I knew what I was getting myself into. And I got to really take a step back and assess if those flaws, because every person has flaws, right? Any man that you're gonna date, no matter how tall he is or how much money he makes or what skills he has, every man is gonna have flaws. Every man is also going to have different degrees of flaws and different degrees of like the inclination towards self-improvement. It was such a great opportunity for me to assess, one, how willing he was to grow. Two, what existing flaws were there, and, along with the willingness to grow, what he was doing about them. Three, how open he was to discuss them and to be seen as less than perfect. And then I also got to understand how I potentially would fit into his life, or how he and his flaws would fit into mine, like what that dynamic would be like, and if those flaws are something that I could bear. And to tie this back into the conversation of like my type when I was dating, I realized that I had this inclination towards a trait that I actually really did not like and really did not want anything to do with, which is a guy that's really intellectual, because in a lot of cases that can lend itself to manipulation and gaslighting, because like when you're good with words and you're good with logic and you can twist things around, that is something that is kind of one of the negative manifestations of being an intellectual person. So I found the more time that I spent with my husband and the more that I got to know him, that he was not of that intellectual persuasion. He had other skill sets and great qualities. His mind is so interesting. The way that I describe it is like his mind is very shape-oriented and spatially aware. So he's the kind of person that could look at basically anything broken and just by looking at it, understand how to fix it. And I'm completely fascinated by that. My brain does not work that way. And I found that having those different strengths was actually really beneficial, because we get to fill in each other's gaps. And I was only able to glean all of this information because I was not interested at first blush, because I was taking a more analytical stance, and because I was not spending any time or energy into performing womanhood. I was just being authentically myself. That was the biggest blessing in dating my husband, and it was kind of a perfect storm. There were, certain things that can definitely be replicated, like taking that analytical stance and just having a posture of, I wouldn't necessarily call it disinterest, but like, you don't need this person, right? You're trying to figure out if they're a good fit. I guess it's being selective and discerning. Any opportunity that you have as a woman to take that stance, I think it behooves you tremendously, not just to keep bad men out of your life, but to actually find the men and the man that is good, that is perfect for you. So yeah, in the end, dating was really not what I expected, especially in finding my person and marrying them. None of that looked totally how I expected. But I think, like, when I really think about it, it is what I wanted, and it is what I dreamed of, like, as a little girl. I know that I became very cynical in my adolescence and early adulthood, partially because, my parents had this gnarly divorce that was just always in the back of my mind and kind of made me averse to the idea of finding love if that's how it's going to end. But that's another story for another time, probably. All that to say, I'm just so delighted to have wound up with the man that I am married to. He is wonderfully masculine, completely earnest and sincere. He's not afraid to be wrong. He chases humility. and he's willing to learn and grow and be vulnerable, and we get to enjoy learning about each other and taking risks together, building a life together, and filling in the gaps for each other. That's something that I never would have anticipated loving so much, is having totally different strengths from my husband. And I think the thing I love most about it is that I don't ever feel like I'm in some sort of competition with him or I have to prove myself to him, because what we are both doing is completely different, but it's toward the same unified mission in our marriage, and we could not be doing all that we are doing without the support of the other and without the things that the other person is doing to, again, fill in those gaps. So hopefully this video is helpful. You know, if you are dating, I wish you the best of luck. It is kind of treacherous out there, especially more and more as time goes on with the apps and everything like that. But good men are out there, good women are out there. It's just kind of hard to find each other sometimes, but it's totally possible. And just keep an open mind, keep your eye on the prize, be very analytical, but about the really important things, right? Like the character-based things, the things that are going to shape the course of your life. And another facet that's been interesting for me is just how much my attraction for my husband has exploded and exploded again and again over time because of his character and because of how much I trust him. I found that for me, in my personal experience of womanhood and femininity, that sense of safety and trust and peace that I find with my husband, because he is so sincere, because he is so earnest, consistent, he has just an amazing character and he holds himself to a very high standard, and he has values and a true orientation to how he lives his life. That has allowed me to be that much more in love with him, because I know who he is and I know what I'm getting and I don't have to wonder. That peace is just, oh my gosh, there is nothing better. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. I really appreciate you being here. Again, I hope this was useful, and let me know down below any questions, comments, concerns. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.